Ladies and gentlemen, this is it. Time to step out of the modern and tackle one of the greatest, most hyped movies of all time. On one corner you have me, a random pedantic asshole in the internet who reviews movies as a hobby to stave off personal dread. And on the other corner you have the one, the only, the Adventures of Robin Hood. The 1938 classic cited as the best Robin Hood movie of all time. Directed by Michael Curtiz, with Errol Flynn as the legendary Robin Hood, Olivia de Havilland as Maid Marian, Basil Rathbone as Guy of Gisborne, and Claude Rains as Prince John. This is the Robin Hood movie whose influence stretches to this day, be it by imitation or by parody, trying to diverge from it or to go along with it. You can still see several seeds that this movie sowed across time. Now, is it good? Does it survive the scrutiny of time, especially with its technical limitations? Let's find out! On the visuals aspect, James Cagney once said about the director Michael Curtiz that Mike was a pompous bastard who didn't know how to treat actors, but he sure as hell knew how to treat a camera. And considering how infamous was Curtiz and Flynn's mutual hatred, the fact that Curtiz directed this movie and went to direct Casablanca, which I will review sooner or later, I'd say that he was right. Influenced by German Expressionism, we can see Curtiz's signature style of crane shots slowly developing. But there is still a lot of influence from theater mixing in with interesting angles. Scenes are longer, shots are also longer, and with a good pacing. Most of the shots will be centralized in one person, but from time to time we will see more dynamic scenes or wider pans to show where everything is happening. While they will look a bit blasé in comparison with modern filming techniques, this is absolutely rock solid filmography. No shaky cams, no quick cuts, you can see crystal clear everything that is going on and everyone has their time to speak loud and clear. This was the start of the Technicolor, before the dark times, before the Hollywood bleakness.
Who's that then? I don't know. Must be a king. Why? He hasn't got shit all over him.
In fact, it was the third movie in Technicolor made by Warner, and by Bugs Bunny Carrot it shows. Sets are as plentiful as needed. We see the Nottingham Castle, the Sherwood Forest, a village, a tavern, and some other spots, but all of them are bright and colorful. And honestly, this is Robin Hood. There ain't much to go without deviating from the main story. Due to the limitations of the time, you won't see overly complex scenarios, but they are very well used in its entirety, both in colors, panning, and music. For example, a really good juxtaposition is shown through parties. A party in Nottingham Castle is pompous but silent. Everyone is smug, covered in jewels but afraid of Prince John, who always has the most pompous outfits. On the other hand, a party in Sherwood is cheery, loud, with happy people frolicking about, even if their clothes are shaggier and they are in the open. People clearly aren't afraid of Robin, but on the contrary, they really like him. And the camera work reinforces it by shooting from more afar to reinforce a sense of community. The wardrobe is also really good, with knights wearing colorful heraldry, while the Sherwood thieves wear pretty much the same thing but with color variations. You see lots of jewels, bright colors, contrasts, and elaborated costumes with designs that would be considered ludicrous nowadays, but at the time were really charming. It's as if it was a children's fantasy book popping up to life. And this wardrobe could be seen as symbolic. For example, in this scene between John, Guy, and the bishop, John is wearing black with some studs as if he were clad in armor. Guy of Gisborne is wearing green, with a pattern that brings to mind scales as if he was a dragon or a snake, and the bishop is also wearing black with purple beneath, as if his darkness was covering his religious duties. Yeah, I keep talking about colors a lot, but do you have any idea how refreshing it is to see a medieval movie that isn't black or brown? As for Robin and his Mary's Men attires, well, yeah, the ties are ridiculous, but by the bones of Tapestry Jesus, no one can deny how iconic they are and how they marked the generations to come. After all,
We're men, manly men, we're men in tights. Yes!
Now, using this opportunity to talk about the acting, yeah, there is no way of tackling that without starting with the obvious. I'm not a historian and my sources are skimmed at best. But if what I read is true, Errol Flynn mostly did this movie for money, hated the director, and it shows. It's undeniable that in some of these scenes, especially during the laughter, he's just phoning in. But this seems to be the case of Landerization, akin to what happened to Shatner and Captain Kirk, because these moments of phoning in aren't the norm. Much on the contrary, while you won't see acting akin to Casablanca, because remember, this is an adventure movie, I'd say that Flynn was overall quite good even with those wobbly bits. He does sell well that Robin is a merry man that wants the best for everyone even when his ass is utterly kicked or in more serious moments. Robin is the kind of guy that is just that cheery and knows that being cheery is a great way to lift up the spirits of your friends and absolutely piss off your foes. Knowing when to smile to disarm a tense situation or to make his enemies commit a mistake. And even if Flynn and Curtis hated each other, their works synergized well. Look at the scene.
Hardly an inspiring sight for such pretty eyes as yours, I'm sure. These poor devils have all had their homes burned.
He just showed a camp full of wounded people to Marian. He lets the impression hit her and then he slowly breaks the ice with some small comments. Robin can go from serious to cheery, from cheery to angry, and from angry to throwing acid barbs. And the direction follows suit. And let's be honest, even when he is phoning in, Errol Flynn is charismatic. Olivia de Havilland played a good Maid Marian and dominated well the swerves of the character. She is kind, but misguided, and somewhat arrogant, until Robin helps her see the gravity of the situation and they fall for each other. Her scenes with Robin are some of the best acting in the flick, and it's no surprising to learn that their actors had an affair. Claude Rains played Prince John in a way that, even if he is actually the shortest character around the scene, there is no doubt that John was in charge. He oozed disdainful, condescending, and smug villainy in a way that reminds you of a Bond villain before Bond even existed. Basil Rathbone as Guy of Gisborne is the one that makes me a bit split. On one hand, I know how Rathbone was a good actor. I saw other movies with him and I know he could be as energetic as Errol Flynn. But here his acting is subdued, contained. Sure, I understand that this is to show that Guy is the direct opposite of Robin and in order to not overshadow John, but I think that the directing could have done something more with him. And the rest of the cast doesn't fall behind. They all know that this is an adventure movie and they fall within the spots. We have the comic reliefs on both good guys and the bad guys. Again, you won't see anything Oscar worthy here, but nothing bad either. On the action, this movie has the kind of stunt work that you won't see nowadays. Literally, because those were real arrows being shot at extras with extra padding and protection. This means that the action is as real as it gets, including the panicked screams. The swordsmanship is legendary for a reason. Both Errol Flynn and Basil Rathbone were notorious fences at the time, and Michael Curtis knew how to properly use them, resulting in one of the most famous action sequences in cinema. I rewatched it and I can't show it because it must be seen with the movie. All I can say is that the scenarios are simple, the action is intense, and Curtis uses shadows superbly. There aren't many action sequences, but those who happen on screen are memorable, with the limitations of the time, like bent swords, and led to several imitators down the line. Now, there is one thing that I wasn't expecting because no one talked about it. The homoeroticism. By Jove, there is a ton of it. And I'm not talking about the reinterpretations of two men going to the woods while dressed in tights. Claude Rains allegedly said to his daughter that he played John as a homosexual, and it shows. He does look at Robin as if he wanted a green bean for his personal parlor, and, well, the fight scenes do show a lot of two sweaty men getting within kissing range while smiling. Now, for the writing. Everybody knows by now the story of Robin Hood, starting with Richard the Lion departing England to fight in the Crusades, and his brother John seizing the throne and starting a brutal campaign of horror through England, with Robin being a valiant noble that opposes John and mounts resistance on Sherwood Forest. Depending on who is telling the story, Robin will have at his side characters like Little John, Friar Tuck, and be in love with Maid Marian, Richard's ward. And this tale has been told several times through several mediums such as books, series, cartoons, movies, and more.
Robin Hood.
Sir, I protest. I am not a merry man.
Lots of movies. The Adventures of Robin Hood isn't a serious movie. In fact, it's a fun adventure movie made with the style of the time, including all the deaths, even with the serious moments. The tone is overall light. So, writing-wise, what makes this so special? Let's start with the basics. The movie respects its tone. When it's time to be cheery, it's cheery. When it's time to be serious, it's serious. Characters may tease each other, but the tone of the scene is kept constant. And pretty much akin to the tone, the movie's pacing is really good. You have the introduction to the scenario, the story, and its characters. Villains start to act, the heroes react accordingly and start mounting resistance, which panics the villains who devise their own plans, leading to the final showdown. No overabundance of action scenes, but no lack of thrilling moments. Everything is well dosed. No rogue strands of plots that go nowhere. To keep things simple and on a budget, Robin is presented as a noble, but we don't see his castle or his servants, and several scenes were written to dodge the budget limitations creatively. For example, the final scene was supposed to be a castle siege, but that was deemed too expensive. Thus, Robin's last plan was inserted into the story. If there is a small complaint about the plot, it's that it could have been used more of Robin's colleagues, but this is just a minor detail. This movie was also the first to completely eschew purple prose, fancy talking. Possibly one of the reasons why no one here bothers with accent.
Unlike some other Robin Hoods, I can speak with an English accent.
This made things more accessible and relatable, so when Robin talked about the plight of the downtrodden, it's easier to pay attention and let the empathy roll. And this was one of the crucial spots. While there was the obvious toning down in the matters of how characters speak, the content itself wasn't toned down. Dialogues are still quite good, simple without being stupid and straightforward without being rushed. But also quite loaded with characterization and wit. Robin, for example, has a hell of a sharp tongue, but he isn't the only one. Speaking of characterization, this is an interesting example of simple is good to its core. All these characters are simple as if taken directly from an old book of tales, and while their base is solid, it doesn't mean that this is where they end. For example, Robin is what I consider a Bastion character, pretty much like Superman or Kiryu. Yes, from the Yakuza series. They can also be called paragons, but nonetheless, these are the characters that you go to when you need reassurance that everything will be okay. Their unwavering sense of justice is inspiring when you see the world throwing everything at them and they remain unwavering. These characters are also really good to give hope, advice, or be used as mirrors. And Robin here is genuinely, honestly a good person.
You're a strange man.
Strange? Because I can feel for beaten, helpless people?
No, you're strange because you want to do something about it.
This is something that is sorely missed nowadays. Not only in Robin Hood's later adaptations, but writing as a whole. While he can be snarky, he isn't a sarcastic jackass or a jerk with a heart of gold. He genuinely wants to help as many people as he can in any way he can, willing to lose his noble title, lands and everything, risking life and limb to do so. He is simply a pure good person, and by being a good person, he teaches and inspires others to improve themselves. For example, teaching Marian the reality beyond the castle walls. But he isn't limited to be just a do-gooder. He is jovial, as said before, a merry man, and he isn't a boring, invincible character. Much on the contrary, whenever he gets too cocky for his own good, he gets his ass handed to him. and this happens several times in this movie. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, our protagonist has flaws that are exploited not only by the narrative but by the villains too. In fact, one of the things that this movie has in spades that is lacked nowadays is that while this is a simple adventure movie, everyone is smart in their own way. We have schemers like John who control everything behind the curtains, Guy with battle strategies, even the coward nobles that hide under John's cape have their moments of brilliance, using Robin's infatuation with Marion against him. Marion's characterization is also rock solid and offers the base for a really good contrast. This Marion may not be a fighter, but she has a really sharp tongue as well, lots of courage, is quite smart to the point she is the one that makes the plan to save Robin when things go sideways. And for 1939, a woman being the brains to save the main character was insanely progressive. And she shows a remarkable strength of character, offering a really good juxtaposition with Robin. When Robin offers to take her away to Sherwood, she refuses. Robin could have easily stayed on his castle resting on his laurels while the country goes to hell, but he chose to fight, just like how Marion could have ran away and stayed in the forest letting the men do the fighting, but she knows she's far more useful to Robin by acting as his spy regardless of the danger. Lastly, the ideas behind the story itself. While nowadays sentiment towards England has decayed, the movie still carries a good message about fighting oppression, how one's loyalty to the country doesn't mean loyalty to a person, and how narcissistic tyrants surrounded by psychotic monsters and moronic yes-men should be fought tooth and nail. And yes, this includes killing them. Robin knows that words won't cut it and that pacifism isn't an option in this case, which is more interesting when you realize that this movie came before World War II. There's also a good idea about putting aside differences between Saxons and Normans in favor of a common goal and peaceful coexistence, something that I haven't seen in many Robin Hood adaptations nowadays. For the soundtrack, fun fact, Eric Wolfgang Korngold initially didn't want to make the score for this movie, not wanting to be associated with an action flick, but Warner Bros. Convinced him to do so. Therefore, the composer came to the United States, leaving his home country of Austria in 1938, right before the Nazis annexed it. And did you know that Eric was Jewish? Yeah, to the surprise of no one, he often said that Robin Hood saved his life. And his music style fits the swashbuckling, fast-paced adventure movie like a glove. More attuned ears will recognize the influence from Wagner, which adds a grandeur to the whole score, fitting well with the scenario. The soundtrack is said to be the last part of a triumvirate of greatness, and I do agree. It's really good. Nothing as memorable as Chariots of Fire or Neverending Story, but it's rare to see such a striking soundtrack so fitting of a movie. So, in the end, is this the best Robin Hood of all time? At least from the ones I've watched, yes. It's a perfect combination of a simple, solid base used to build an amusing story filled with clever and interesting characters with a really good directing in some nifty tricks and a good pace. It knows it's an adventure movie and plays accordingly. This isn't a movie that is a vehicle for a movie star. It doesn't idolize Robin Hood. It flashes everything else around him. There's no subversion, no mean-spiritedness, even if he could have went through this route since this isn't the first Robin Hood flick by a long shot. If I had to make a comparison, The Adventures of Robin Hood is the movie equivalent to a grandma's carrot cake covered in chocolate. It's a simple base cake done really well with good ingredients, with the extra sauce to add flavor without modifying the recipe. That's it. This is a simple adventure movie that anyone can enjoy at any time. It's not overly complicated art. It doesn't have or need Casablanca's tragedy, or Ben-Hur epic scale, or 2001 A Space Odyssey's technical achievements. No one else can do it better because there is technically nothing to improve. It has colors, making it win over the past productions, and the simplicity and straightforwardness that modern writers and producers can't understand. And this is why The Adventures of Robin Hood is the base movie to go. And one of the reasons why they can't surpass it. They can only try to subvert it. This movie is indivisible like an atom. I mean, technically you can split an atom, but the results... And this is why I truly recommend this movie to be seen even today and why it's still relevant. It shows crystal clear that simplicity and skill can make an enduring work. Nowadays there is a vicious lack of sincerity, tender moments being broken with subversion, tension broken with quips, and if we, viewers, can't expect nothing good in the future, if these trends will endure as long as there are stupid producers and lackluster writers, what choice do we have if not to seek the tenderness of the past? That's all for today, thank you very much and see you all next time. Remember to like and subscribe.